Off. Oh, oh, so done with my banker jacket.
All right, I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to our podcast, where we'll be discussing the behind the scenes for business banking. With me is my co-host, Jason Alley. Combined, we have 30 plus years in banking experience from the top institutions in the US. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Great to be here, Heather. Wow, that's a lot of years. It's been
I
over
know.
20 years since I
We're
started.
old.
It's been over 20 years since I started in the banking industry. So I guess we are kind of getting a little bit older. I remember waking up my 40th birthday. I was camping with a buddy of mine from college who ended up being the best man at my wedding. And that morning I woke up out of the tent and had somewhat of an epiphany, I guess, if you will. At that moment, I realized, it's time to make some changes. So I've always been very, very interested in working with and with the intention to work with and help entrepreneurs in their businesses. So, and more so of how I can help to help these companies not only reach their goals, but also to get to the next level. So I guess I mean by that, to help the company grow, but also to help them through the difficult times, like the PPP process and deferments and things of that nature. I'm just very happy that I've been able to find that opportunity with Arena, and it's exactly what I intended to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just like you, Jason, in so many ways. Like I had the epiphany and I left banking probably about 5 years ago now. And about 3 years ago formed the company that really just started to build out an alternative solution to help support businesses. It doesn't replace your bank by any means. And we're here today to this podcast is all about helping businesses develop the best relationship with their bank and how to do that. How to navigate the bank, how to navigate the bank's processes when you're in search of a loan, you've got a problem on your statement, you don't understand how transactions work, and ultimately gain the ability to use your bank as a tool for business growth instead of just the standard utility you think you have to manage your money. So let's jump right in. Jason, you've been covering businesses and in both the business sector and the commercial sector from a banking standpoint for most of your career. Let's talk about the difference between business and commercial banking. We think that this is like the baseline here to get us started so people understand what department to go to.
Sure. So when it comes to business versus commercial banking, it can be, it can be quite a bit confusing for most of the clients. And honestly, it really depends on the business as well as the bank that you're working with. So I have to say that neither is better than the other when it comes to the business banking groups or the commercial banking groups, but they are very different. So meaning that the size of the complexity of the company is often what determines what group that you're going to be within the bank and which will be the best fit for your company. So the larger companies typically by either by both revenue size or employee size is often a good indicator as to which group your bank would recommend to manage your relationship. So with that, meaning the more complexity your company becomes, the more robust of a team that the bank's going to generally provide for you to ensure the best experience within the bank. So again, neither group is necessarily better than the other, but it's important to make sure that you do have a dedicated banker to help you along the way and in your journey in relationship with the bank.
Yeah, I totally agree how confusing it is. I have my own firsthand experience after leaving banking and being in like small business teams within a bank, being in commercial teams within a bank. It is confusing from the other side still to me. Now that I've been on both sides, really, like, let me tell the Arena story on how we first got our first bank account. Like, I didn't know which bank was going to be best for me, even though I had careers in banking and serving this same customer base. Sure. So what I did is I walked into the branch and I didn't have all my documents with me and it was a little clunky. I didn't know I was supposed to ask for a business banker. I kind of just went to the branch manager. And I don't know if that was the right choice or not, because ultimately things took a lot longer for me to get set up. Had I made that relationship connection, I think with a business banker or ultimately a commercial banker, if that was better suited for us. So, I don't, as I think about my first experience with the bank, having been in this industry forever, being a customer, what I ended up doing was really hedging everything. And what I did is I created multiple banking relationships with multiple banks because I didn't know which one was going to move at what pace of the other. I didn't know which relationship was going to build out better than the other. I didn't know which ones would lend to me and which ones wouldn't. Where could I get a credit card? What would be the rate? What would be my line? I wasn't sure. It was all kind of an unknown. And you kind of don't know when you invest all that time at the beginning of a relationship. So it really took us a long time to get stood up at a bunch of places. And I think it was, to be honest, my approach. Like, I didn't really know who to reach out to or how to create that relationship. So so what do you think that is the best approach for choosing a bank and establishing a relationship with one?
So Heather, that's a great question. So I think the one misconception these days is that most people think of that the location of the bank or even the number of branches in the area is very important. But banks have done a great job by minimizing the need for the physical location of the branches for business and commercial clients. So I would not take that into too much consideration when choosing the bank, but I would recommend choosing your bank based on the banker specifically and the relationship that you either currently have with that particular banker, or even just as important, the relationship you believe that you can form with the banker and his or her team over a period of time.
Mm.
I used to tell folks when I was in banking, I used to tell folks very often that you shouldn't make the decisions necessarily on the rates and the pricing, as those things can often change with the market or just change over time, or often even change based on the needs of your company. So your banker will be able to guide you through the best services that fit your business and to make sure that you're getting a fair opportunity as well as pricing. So again, I think having the right banker is most important, and the right team that understands you, understands your business, and more importantly, your company's future needs, not only today, but what you're going to do going forward, whether it be forecasting or, intentions for, purchases, whether it be properties, equipment, things of that nature. And these are, in my opinion, these are the basic fundamentals that I think you should consider when choosing your bank.
Yeah, I mean, it is all about people. We know this, and it's something where we formed our relationship that way, right? And it started well before we started working together. Let's if we turn a little bit to just operationally how we make that happen. So let's talk about what your banker does once you have a relationship with them. Sometimes I find it confusing because you can be transferred from department to department. What should we rely on our banker to do for us versus what should we try to resolve or initiate ourselves at a bank if we're a kind of newly formed business or a small business?
Sure. So going back to the importance of the banker themselves, whether he or she, whoever you have decided to go with, but I would always recommend to call your banker first. The banker can hold or can handle just about anything that you may be requesting or any concern that you have. And typically there's a team behind the banker. So if it's not something the banker can handle themselves, there is support behind that particular banker as well. So that banker should be able to sync the team together with both you, the banker, the team behind them, and that should theoretically eliminate any type of need for any 800 numbers or various other departments. It should be very minimal from your experience. And there's usually a business associate or relationship liaison of some sort that can help with the banker. It's not the right right process for the banker to handle. But it should never relate back to an 800 number if you have the right team in place. So again, this is where having the right team and taking the time to get to know your banker and the partners is vital in your relationship.
So it's not really nagging if I call my banker. So I kind of, as I was forming the company and, trying to get my relationship established at 3 different banks because I wasn't sure which one I was going to get what from. I started to form that relationship, but then I was like, oh, this is too menial of an activity I need. I'm going to call the 1-800 line. I should be instead calling my banker and relying on them to work internally to help navigate, even if they're passing me off, but just so my banker's aware of the needs that I have and the struggles that might be happening during that building that relationship and that out with the bank.
Yeah, and absolutely. I imagine during the 3 different banks that you were working with, you were probably able to determine which banker was more helpful, more knowledgeable, and more on your side as far as what you were looking for, what your needs were, versus just kind of processing a request or a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, one of the banks actually, one of them was they basically pushed me all to online, so I didn't have a banker. And in that case, I was trying to remedy everything myself and move things along kind of the pipeline for approval myself, by sending emails and, service requests and things like that through the system. In retrospect, I should have just asked for a banker.
Yeah, and that goes back to being part of the right group and making sure that you do have a dedicated banker to your company.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Jason, how do you go about actually just finding a banker? Like, how do I know that there's a good one out there or a bad one out there? I have no idea where to start if I'm a new business owner, or I'm a business owner that really hasn't just built any connection with the bank. Where would you start?
The first thing I would recommend is to go to some of your peers or even competitors and ask where they have had success. And I've actually had a lot of clients come to me that were recommended by not only clients that I've worked with, but also clients that I couldn't work with. But we were able to be very honest with them and explain to them what we could and could not do. And I have had quite a few referrals in my 21 years in banking that people have come to me and said, ABC companies, that you're a great banker. They weren't able to work with you at that point in time, but you did such a great job in that process that they recommended me to come to you as well. And I think a lot of that comes back down to the credibility of the banker to be able to say, this is not a great acquisition for you at the moment, right? So we're not going to be able to do this today. I'm not going to recommend it for you. And that's a very honest approach. And I think that's what people are looking for, is somebody that can be honest, but also straightforward, and to be able to help them get to the next level. And if today's not the time to get to the next level, it's very important to share that with them or socialize that now versus dragging that process along. So I've experienced quite a bit of business from that perspective. If it was me that was looking for a banker, I would immediately not look for the bank, but I would look towards my peers or even competitors in the industry and see what their experience is.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, building relationships is the key to this success, it sounds like to me. And a core component of building relationships is trust, and building a trust network around you and having trusted resources for your business. And it goes beyond banking, but it certainly is a critical component of picking your banker. Yeah.
I think
Awesome.
the relationship is by far the biggest component of all of it. And that's why I had mentioned that, building the relationship with your banker, but also with the team. And I think I mentioned before that the number one gap that I have found is the lack of willingness to share the relationship with the CPA and the attorney with the banker. All three really should be combined and should have a lot of synergy between the three. And that way the company can feel much better knowing that they have the correct team in place for their next steps.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like working with business customers, it does create a lot for a banker, but at the same time, we should be leaning on them. So what is like the biggest advice you could give out to businesses out there that are either newly formed or have a loose connection to their bank, and they'd like to make it a deeper connection so that they can leverage all the opportunities that bank can provide them?
Absolutely. So it really goes back to the banker, the relationship with the team, the banker liaison, or the business associate, whoever it is that's part of the team, the treasury management partners as well, and the banker's ability to sync that team together for each client, such as yours. So it's important to have that relationship with the banker. Again, that's a vital piece of the process. But not only that, but if you do develop the right team and the right relationship with the banker, it's very important to introduce them also to the CPA, to your attorney, so everybody can be on the same page. And that way the banker can also help you with the best services for your company, and ensure that everything is working as expected. So it's very important, especially when it comes to your credit facilities, or whether it's your treasury management, tax planning, things of that nature. If that team is structured together and you're able to have some synergy between all three of those components, it'll be a much smoother process for you.
Yeah, I mean, that is a super interesting point that you make. And I don't think a lot of people recognize the magnitude of the benefit you can get from creating the team around you. It's much different than our kind of consumer personal life, right? Where we're the central point of contact to interact with our tax accountant, with our, retirement planning, et cetera. We're that central point of contact. When you're talking from a business context, it seems as though the banker can serve that role in so many ways by being the connective tissue between your CPA and tax and lawyers and just your business team as a whole. And they basically are an extension of your team. And if you see them that way, they can benefit you so much more.
Yeah, exactly. And the banker realistically should be looking proactive. They should be looking for what's going on next year as well, right? So one
Mhm.
question that I always asked was, what are you going to do next? Are you going to buy another company? Are you going to sell? What is going to be your exit strategy? How do we plan for that? Can we start creating some forecasting? Can I talk to your CPA and your attorney about your exit strategy or the forecasting that we need to do in order to find a target if you're going to do an acquisition? Things of that nature should be socialized between your team so everybody is on the same page. And that's truly where you can help a company grow. Otherwise, it's going to be more of a reactive approach where it's just more of, like you had mentioned, calling 1-800 numbers because here's a service issue. All of that stuff should be minimal as far as your concerns. They should be handled by the banker's team, and it should be structured. The relationship should be structured more towards how do we get you to the next level? Or if you want to exit soon, how do we get you to that point so we can get you to the point where you can sell at the multiple that you're looking for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, it sounds like working with business customers is like your passion, man. And it's mine too. So we are going to continue the podcast series. Thanks for sharing your insights today, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my pleasure. So I think next time on the podcast, we'll discuss when to use a bank and when to use a fintech.
Oh, interesting. Yes, this is going to be a good one. Because there are fintechs out there that no one knows about that might be the best thing for your business. But at the same time, banks also have kind of this credibility and stature in the marketplace and give you a lot of comfort and confidence that your money's cared for. So yeah, and that's all for today. We hope you found the discussion on business banking behind the scenes informative. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.